the research going on behind the scenes and anything else we think is cool.
So we'll be starting off this week by highlighting one organism from each of the museum's 6 collections. For this first video, we're talking about tetrapods, which translates as four-footed in reference to the ancestor of this group, but doesn't necessarily mean that everything which has evolved since then has 4 feet. So of course, first of all, we have to talk about the blue whale, which to my understanding is the biggest and baddest of all specimens. Isn't that right?
It is definitely the biggest. I don't know about the baddest, but despite being so big that a human baby could crawl through its arteries, the blue whale is pretty tame. I have to stress that point because it is one of my favorite facts about the blue whale. It is just absolutely massive. Whether the metric is size, like length, or by weight, it's the largest animal alive currently, and by weight, it's almost twice the size of one of the largest known land dinosaurs.
Okay, that's pretty big. Although I have to say, I think my old Aunt Linda's dog Hope would give it a run for its money. He was pretty...
Yeah, and
big dog.
And I mean, like, dogs have all that stuff like protein and meat to help them bulk up. But whales, despite being the largest animal ever, all they eat is krill, which are these little shrimp-like guys.
Huh. Krill. I don't know. It kind of sounds like something from Star Trek. Are you implying that whales eat aliens? Like, why aren't we tweeting about this?
Honestly, like, you don't even have to go to aliens. The stuff on this planet is weird enough. The museum has a lot of really cool whale specimen, and whales are actually pretty closely related to humans.
Okay.
But one of the really big differences between us is how we eat our food. And as we already established, whales really have no use for sharp teeth. So what they have instead is called baleen, and it hangs down from their mouth in these hard slats with the keratin fibers coming off of them, made up of the same stuff as fingernails and hair.
See that?
And if you've ever seen Finding Nemo, you've got a pretty good idea of how baleen whales eat.
I have seen Finding Nemo.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Remember the part where Marlin and Dory get lost, and they see the whale, and Dory sees it, and she's like, "We need to find his son."
Oh yeah.
You think that's how whales talk?
Unfortunately, I think that's one of the many scientific inaccuracies in that movie.
Oh man, childhood ruined.
Back to this. So it's made up of all these hard slats here, but this is actually not a blue whale. This is a gray whale. So one of these little bits here, that's what this is, but this is a blue whale. So just one of these on a gray whale, which is already a whale, it's already pretty big, translate to this whole thing for a blue whale.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing the size difference. That's massive.
Yeah, I know.
That is huge.
The other great specimen that we have here is our blue whale skeleton. So we have a fully articulated blue whale skeleton in our atrium. It's one of only 21 in the world. And I love that specimen. I love having it here, especially from an educational perspective, because I think it's really, really good for illustrating evolution and the concept of a common ancestor. Because I think if you see a live blue whale and you tell people that's a mammal, it's more closely related to humans than to fish, I think a lot of the skepticism or what makes that hard to process might come from the fact that it looks like a fish, right? It's got flippers, it's got fins, it lives in the ocean. But a blue whale skeleton looks like a person. It's got the spine, it's got the ribs, it has the long fingers, it's got even little vestiges of our pelvic bones and our femurs. So I think it's really great to illustrate evolution looking at a blue whale skeleton rather than a blue.
So okay, I have a few questions.
All right.
If whales are closer to humans, does that mean that they can also think and feel like humans? Like, does that mean that they get happy? Do they get sad? Do they get mad if their selfies don't get enough likes on Instagram? I think we want to know. I think the people want to know.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Isn't that right?
Of course.
We want to know.
Well, whales are in the same order as dolphins. They're both cetacea, and everybody's heard about how dolphins are like the smartest creatures ever. But there's actually is a lot of evidence to suggest that these creatures have really complex brains. Whether they're complex enough to develop and care about social media, I think that area of research may be lacking.
All right. Well, I think we have someone here who's going to be able to help us with that. Chris Stinson, curatorial assistant and resident whale expert here at the museum. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris.
No problem. That's great.
All right, so I have a question. Do whales care about what other whales think about them?
Well, I think probably to some degree, you can never actually tell. They probably do have their own set of emotions, and they definitely have like communication between groups, and like in the case of blue whales, they have the loudest sound ever. So you can hear their songs, so to speak, from up to 1,000 kilometers away. So they're obviously talking to each other.
And so we've got our lovely blue whale skeleton hanging up in the atrium. Could you tell the story of how we got that at the museum?
Yeah, sure. So I had the pleasure and privilege to be involved fairly early on in acquiring that. Dr. Andrew Trites set up a team to go dig it up. So originally it washed up in northwestern Prince Edward Island in 1987 near Tignish. And then through some finagling with various museums and things, we got the rights to go dig it up. I was privileged enough with my fiance, who I'm now married to, so the smell of the whale didn't scare her away too much. Go there and dig it up in the spring of 2008.
Yeah, nice. So you sort of touched on it a little bit, but I was just wondering if you could expand just to tell us where your interest in blue whales first started.
Whales in general, though, started probably at the Vancouver Aquarium. Shout out to them. When I was about 10 years old, in 1988, I came here for the first time out to BC to visit family, and got to see the killer whales and the dolphins and things that they had, and belugas that they had there, and it really mesmerized me. And I was fortunate enough to see Pacific white-sided dolphins from the ferry as well when we went over to Victoria. Yeah. So and got into an argument, a little precocious 10-year-old, with someone who was convinced they were killer whales, but they were Pacific white-sided dolphins. And that was actually some of the first times that they started showing up in the Strait of Georgia. So it was pretty rare. Oh, wow. So I could understand why people wouldn't know about it, but I knew.
Okay, so now that you've grown up past the age of 10 and you have acquired some more knowledge about blue whales, are there any common misconceptions about whales that you'd like to clear up right here?
Well, like you guys were talking about earlier, I was eavesdropping. There's the whole fish idea that they're not fish. They are mammals. They breathe air and produce milk just like the rest of the mammals. And they actually have hair, too, when they're in fetal form, little bristles and things like that. A bigger thing that misconception is that we somehow know everything about all the whales, like the biggest animal ever to have lived on Earth, but it's untrue. We don't even know where they breed. We know next to nothing about their life, and I think that's I like to communicate that, so to show people that there's still a sense of wonder out there. There's still a lot of things, even in this age of knowledge everywhere, that there's tons of things that we just don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us and blessing us with your knowledge. So besides Chris, who, as you guys watching at home already know, deserves an absolute shout out, we also have to acknowledge a few other people who have been involved with the blue whale specimen here at the museum. First of all, there's Dr. Andrew Trites. He's a professor here at UBC. He's director of the Marine Mammal Research Unit, and he's also a research associate at the Vancouver Aquarium. Shout out to Vancouver Aquarium again. He was the leader, he was actually the head of the team which went to Prince Edward Island and recovered the blue whale and brought it back here to the museum. So thank you, Dr. Trites.
Yeah, he rocks. And then we also have to talk about the people who have quite possibly the coolest job title ever. Master Skeleton Articulators, Michael DeRoos and Mitchie Main.
That's pretty cool.
So they own a skeleton articulating business called Cetacea, and they're the ones that put together our gorgeous blue whale specimen. And we've got links to all these people and their work in the description if you'd like to follow up on that. And we've also got some supplementary info on blue whales in case you want to read more.
Shout out to Cetacea. That's not an easy thing to say. But okay, that's our first video. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like hearing about blue whales and the behind the scenes stuff here at the museum, please be sure to subscribe and check back to hear about another specimen which we're going to be talking about.